The teacher cut Keanu Reeves' daughter's hair. But when her father, Keanu Reeves, came to the school, everything changed. Most people know Keanu Reeves as a big movie star. He's been in lots of famous movies. But more than that, people love him because he's kind, quiet, and gentle. He doesn't like to show off. He lives his life in a calm, peaceful way. He doesn't talk a lot about his personal life. And he doesn't bring attention to himself. He's the kind of person who helps others, but doesn't need a spotlight for it. One Monday morning, his daughter started going to a very fancy private school. It was a school for rich kids, with shiny buildings and clean, sparkly floors. There were gardens that looked like they were in a movie, and glass windows that showed off the pretty plants. The whole place felt like a palace. At that school, the kids wore perfect uniforms. Their shoes were always clean. Their hair was done by professionals. Even the youngest students acted like they knew they were special, because their parents were famous or rich. But Keanu's daughter wasn't like that. She came to school wearing simple clothes. Her shoes were a little worn. Her hair was plain, just brushed, not styled with fancy clips or curls. She didn't talk much. She was polite and kind. She didn't try to be the center of attention. Some adults found her confusing. They were used to children who tried very hard to get praise. But she didn't do that. She just sat quietly and did her work. She listened when people talked. She smiled softly when spoken to. No one, not the teachers, not the kids, not even the parents, knew who her father was. They didn't think she was important. She didn't have the look or the attitude they expected. Then, something happened. On Wednesday, the class was working on a special project. They were going to talk about their family history. It was called the Heritage Presentation. Everyone was getting ready. A teacher came over to Keanu's daughter. This teacher liked kids who were cute, loud, and popular. She smiled in a way that didn't feel real. She looked at the girl's hair and said, "Let's clean this up a bit." Before the girl could say anything, the teacher took out scissors and snipped a few strands of her hair. "Just a little trim," the teacher said with a cheerful voice. But the trim wasn't kind. It wasn't done with care. It was done because the teacher wanted control. She wanted the girl to look more like the other kids. The girl didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just said, "Thank you," and kept going with her day. That afternoon, it was time for pickup. The school driveway was full of shiny cars. Big SUVs, drivers in suits, fancy parents with sunglasses and phones in their hands. Then one man walked quietly up the steps. He was tall and calm. He wore jeans that looked old, and a plain black shirt. He didn't act important. No one noticed him at first. The teacher looked at him and thought he might be a gardener or someone dropping something off. But then, he walked up to the girl with the simple clothes. And she smiled. It was a real, big smile. Not the kind people give just to be polite. It was a happy, full smile from the heart. And everything changed. He knelt down to her level. He gently brushed some of the cut hair behind her ear. Then, in a soft voice, he asked, "You okay?" The teacher heard his voice. It felt familiar. She tried to place it, and then it hit her, slow but strong. It was Keanu Reeves. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. This quiet man, this father, was one of the most famous actors in the world, and no one had known. Keanu looked at the teacher and said, "Thank you for helping her today." His voice was calm, but there was something deep in his eyes. Something strong and sad and gentle all at once. He didn't yell. He didn't get angry. He didn't need to. Everyone got quiet. Parents stopped talking. Even the kids felt the moment. One parent slowly pulled out their phone and recorded. Not to make a big deal, but because it felt like something important was happening. The video was shared online. By the next morning, it had 1 million views. People weren't watching it because Keanu yelled or made a scene. They watched it because he didn't. He was calm. He was real. He showed what love and strength looked like, without saying much at all. The daughter had something special too. She had her father's peaceful heart. She didn't try to act like someone else. She knew who she was. The teacher never said sorry that day. But she didn't have to. The moment had already taught everyone a big lesson. Keanu and his daughter walked away holding hands. They didn't rush. They walked slowly, as if they were in no hurry at all. As if the world behind them didn't matter anymore. Keanu's hand was on his daughter's back. She leaned into him. Not because she was scared, but because she trusted him. It was a deep kind of trust. The kind that comes from years of being loved quietly. Behind them, the teacher just stood there. She didn't know what to say. Her world, which used to feel so perfect and powerful, now felt shaky. She thought back to what she had done. She hadn't meant to be mean, but she hadn't been kind either. She didn't really see the girl for who she was. Someone nearby whispered, "That was Keanu Reeves, wasn't it?" The teacher didn't speak. She just nodded, and her throat felt tight. Later that night, a rich mom, someone who always went to big parties and events, watched the video on her phone. In the video, you could see everything go quiet. When Keanu arrived, you could see the moment the girl smiled. You could see how Keanu gently touched her cheek. That small moment made people feel something big. The video wasn't about fame. It was about love, kindness, real strength. That same night, the school board had a big meeting. Not because of trouble, but because they realized something was wrong. They had created a place where kids were judged by money, clothes, and popularity. The principal spoke last and said, "We didn't really see her. And that's our mistake." Meanwhile, at home, Keanu and his daughter sat on their back porch. Their feet were bare. The stars twinkled above them. She held a warm cup of tea, the kind her dad always made for her. Too much honey, no lemon. He looked at her and said, "Do you want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "She didn't ask me," she said. Keanu nodded. "No," he said. "She didn't." After a quiet moment, he asked again, "You okay?" She looked up at him and said, "I know who I am." Keanu smiled. Not because she was tough, but because she didn't let anyone else decide her worth. "I see you," he said. She leaned into him. They didn't need words. The silence between them was full of love and trust. At school the next day, everything felt different. Not loud different, quite different. People were more thoughtful. They noticed how they talked to each other. The teacher walked through the halls more gently now. Keanu's daughter came back just as she had left. Soft-spoken, kind, come. But this time, people looked at her with respect. Or maybe they felt sorry they hadn't seen her before. She sat at her desk reading a book. Not a silly book. A deep story her father had given her. It was about a warrior who won without fighting. She touched the pages gently, as if the story was about her. And maybe, in a way, it was. A boy who had laughed at her shoes the week before now looked down when she walked by. His mom had shown him the video. She had said, "Look, this is kindness. This is what I hope you become." Later, during art class, the teacher came to the girl. She bent down beside her and said softly, "I want to say sorry. For the haircut. For not asking. For making assumptions. I'm truly sorry." The girl looked at her and nodded kindly. She didn't need to say much, because sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones who don't need to say a word. The girl looked at her teacher. She wasn't angry. She just looked at her, very quiet and still. So still, it almost made the teacher's heart ache. "It's okay," the girl said after a little pause. "It didn't change anything important." The teacher nodded, and in that moment, something inside her softened. That simple kindness, that quiet forgiveness, moved her more than any shouting ever could. Somewhere else in the big city, Keanu sat in a small cafe. He wore a cap pulled low to hide his face. A video of him and his daughter had gone everywhere online. Because of it, the people with cameras, the paparazzi, started following him again. But Keanu didn't pay much attention. He just sat quietly, like he always did. He was used to people not really knowing who he was. He was used to them guessing, making up stories. He had learned not to correct them anymore. He didn't need to. It was enough to live the truth. Then, a woman came up to him, a little nervous, holding her phone in her hand. "I just wanted to say something," she said kindly. "That video of you and your daughter made me cry. The way you cared for her. It reminded me what love really looks like." Keanu gave her a soft smile. "Thank you," he said. Then he turned back to the window, watching two little birds play on a power line. They chased each other, light and free. He thought about all the times he had to walk away from places where people didn't really see him, not the real him. They saw the actor, the name, the stories others told. But that didn't matter to him anymore. What mattered now was his daughter, the way she was strong and gentle, like a warm light that didn't need to be bright to be beautiful. That night, his daughter asked him a question. "Do you remember when you cut your hair in the bathroom mirror? When you were my age?" Keanu laughed. "Yeah," he said. "It was awful." She grinned wide. "Worse than mine." "Much worse," he said, smiling. They laughed together, their voices echoing through the hallway, like music, like magic. In that moment, Keanu knew this was what mattered. Not being understood by everyone, but being loved by someone who understood everything. The days passed. Weeks passed. The world moved on like it always does. New stories came, louder ones. New headlines. But the people who saw the moment at the school, whether online or deep in their hearts, I didn't forget. Not really. Because that moment wasn't just a video. It was something more. It was a mirror. It showed people what love, kindness, and change could look like. At the school, things started to shift. It wasn't loud or fast. It was slow and quiet. But it was real. Teachers listened more. They asked more questions. They didn't just look at grades or behavior. They looked at hearts. The principal asked Keanu if he would come speak to the teachers. Just a small meeting. Keanu said no. Instead, he wrote a short letter. Only 8 lines. No name at the bottom. It said, "Teach them to see, not to judge. Teach them to ask, not assume." Some children wear their hearts on their sleeves. Others carry galaxies inside their silence. Please notice both. They framed the letter and hung it in the teacher's lounge. Only a few people knew who wrote it, but no one said it out loud. because some truths are strongest when they are whispered. At home, Keanu was a little different too. Not in a way others could see, but in the quiet, important ways. He laughed more with his daughter. He stayed with her longer after school. Sometimes they took walks. Late at night, under the soft city stars, she would talk about school, about dreams, about nothing at all, and he would just listen. One night she asked him, "Do you ever get tired of people not understanding you?" He looked at her, and a small smile appeared on his face. "Not anymore," he said. "I used to." "Why not now?" she asked. "Because the people who matter don't need me to explain." She nodded, and for the first time, she really understood what he meant. Then, one day, something surprising happened. A young mother walked up to Keanu, outside a bookstore. She had a toddler on her hip, and tears in her eyes. "I just needed to tell you," she said, her voice shaking. "My daughter's teacher saw your video, and something changed. She sees her now. She listens. That video with your daughter, it changed more than a school. It changed my daughter's life too." Keanu's eyes softened. "Thank you for telling me that," he said quietly. The woman reached into her bag and handed him a small envelope. "My daughter drew this," she said. She said, "It's the man with the quiet eyes. I think she meant you." Keanu opened the envelope. Inside was a drawing in crayons. A little girl with a crooked smile. Next to her, a tall man, with a soft blue glow around him. No superhero cape. No mask. Just quiet strength. He looked at the drawing for a long time. Later that night, he showed it to his daughter. She smiled. "Is that you?" she asked. "I think it's us," he said. She pinned it to her bedroom wall. And they didn't say anything more, because they didn't have to. Spring arrived gently that year, like the world had been waiting to let out a deep breath. Cherry blossoms bloomed early, covering the sidewalks in soft pink petals. Keanu and his daughter walked together, under the trees, hand in hand, not talking much, just being together. One day, as the petals floated down like pink snow, she looked up at him. "Will people ever stop judging others?" she asked. Keanu thought for a moment. "Maybe not," he said. "But we don't have to carry it with us. We can leave it behind," she said, "where it belongs." He nodded. A few days later, the school held its spring talent show. Usually, it was full of fancy costumes, perfect songs, and big claps for kids with coaches. But this year, things felt different. The lights dimmed. Keanu sat quietly in the back row. As always, unnoticed. Just how he liked it. His daughter walked onto the stage, alone, carrying only a notebook. She looked at everyone. Parents, kids, teachers. "I want to tell you a story," she said. "Not one I read. One I lived in." And she told me. She talked about a girl who didn't quite fit in, about a teacher who made a mistake, about a moment when things could have gone wrong, but didn't, because someone chose kindness, not anger, grace, not revenge. She didn't name anyone. She didn't have to. When she finished, the room was silent. Not the uncomfortable kind. The special kind. The kind where people feel something deep. Then the clapping began. Not just polite clapping. Real, honest clapping. Some people stood. Some wiped away tears. In the back row, Keanu clapped softly, his eyes shining with tears. not because she was performing, but because she was sharing the truth, their truth, and she had made it into something that could heal hearts. After the show, she ran into his arms. He picked her up, just like he used to when she was small. "You were amazing," he whispered. "I was just honest," she said. "That's what made it amazing," he replied. A few days later, the same teacher who once misunderstood her asked if she'd help start a new school program, one about kindness, listening, and understanding. She said yes, quietly, with the same grace she learned from her dad. The seasons changed. The story faded from the news, but it stayed in the hearts of those who really saw it, really felt it. The video lived on, in quiet corners of the internet, in places people visited, to remember what goodness looks like. Years later, someone wrote a book about it all, about how one quiet act changed a school. Keanu never talked about it in public, but he kept a copy of the book on his shelf, right next to his daughter's notebook, and sometimes he would take it down, read a little, and smile, because in a world full of noise, they had chosen stillness. In a world full of pictures, they had chosen realness. And in a world that often gets strength wrong, they had chosen love, soft, quiet, and true. If you liked this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.